Welcome to Big Little Stories. I'm Ivy Sharmatz. My guest today has spent his career exploring what makes us human through films that touch our hearts and stories that stay with us. But his latest work asks a question that feels more urgent than ever. How do we truly connect with one another in a world that feels increasingly divided? Barnet Bain is an award-winning filmmaker and author whose new book, How to Be a Friend in an Unfriendly World, invites us to rethink friendship, not as something we find, but as something we practice. Barnet, is such a privilege to have you here today. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Well, thank you, Ivy. That's quite an introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Well, I take that as a compliment because I have to start. We have so much to talk about today, but I have to start by telling you that one of the movies that you produced, the Oscar-winning film "What Dreams May Come," is one of the most beautiful films that I've ever seen, visually, emotionally. I saw it many years ago. It has stayed with me. Parts of that movie kind of just live in my heart now, and I feel like it's a good place for us to start because a lot of what that movie is about, among other things, friendship, love, connection, is kind of a through line in your work.
Yeah, there's uh, a estimable French filmmaker named Jean Renoir, son of the great painter Auguste Renoir, and he famously was quoted as saying that a film director, a filmmaker, only ever makes one film in his or her life. And I think that is not only is that true, but I think that applies to every effort and every endeavor of every human being. We're only ever plowing the same field.
Mm.
Let me look at it this way. Let me look at it this way. Let me look at it this way. And we are consumed either consciously with full awareness or otherwise. We're consumed with examining and re examining the questions and the thoughts and the beliefs, the issues of our life over and over again. So, yes, I only ever do one thing. But it extends to how I do family, how I do friendships, how I do it's all one thing.
Yeah,
It's all only one thing.
yeah. So you mentioned, I mentioned the book, How to Be a Friend in an Unfriendly World. How did we get to be an unfriendly world?
Well, the short answer to that, and we can unpack it more. The
Mm,
short answer to that is that we all are raised in these kinds of bubbles of inputs.
mm,
All of the thoughts and all of the ideas and all of the beliefs, and they're all pretty much hand me down from outside of ourselves. So I say in the book that I had an experience where I was walking in a park near my house and I saw this street performer, and he had two sticks with a length of yarn tied between them and a pan of soapy water, and he would dip the yarn in, and then he'd make these
mm,
incredible soap bubbles,
mm.
and they were just magnificent. He could twist them, he could make them into all kinds of little creatures, and then I was captivated for his pièce de résistance. He created this enormous bubble around himself and stepped into it.
Mm.
And I suddenly realized that this is what I do. And perhaps this is what we all do. We create these bubbles of personality and of all this inherited from outside of ourselves, all these ideas and all these worldviews and all these assumptions and all these thoughts and all these beliefs and all this history. And we live inside it. And now we even have algorithms to double down on all of this. So we live inside these bubbles. And I understood at that point that unless somebody is aligned with my bubble, kind of a Venn diagram, if there's enough an overlay where somebody else shares the values and the worldview that I have, I can relate to them. And to the degree that they don't, I push back, or I trigger, or at worst, I make them invisible.
Mm.
And I think it goes a long way to explaining how it is that we are living in an unfriendly world. The world itself is is very friendly. It is a loving world. But how we are trained to respond to the world is often anything but loving. We are like Narcissus in our little bubbles. Narcissus, the Greek myth of
Mm-hmm.
the young
Mm-hmm.
man who saw his reflection in a pond and didn't realize it was his own reflection and fell in love with himself. Well, I cop to that. I realize that people that share my values, I respond to them. But in fact, it's me loving myself. There's a certain kind of vanity there, and we all do this. Now, it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's something. It's just the way we operate, and we have the capacity to recognize that in ourselves, and then to take a pause with other people who are triggering us. Somebody that rubs me the wrong way, or someone with whom I have disagreement, or I don't see eye to eye, whether it's around the dinner table or on television news or whatever it is. I realize I'm only ever reacting out of my own worldview, which I insist is correct. Now, this isn't about arguing whether one's worldview is correct or not correct, but to be able to own that and kind of put the clutch in, pop it into neutral a little bit, and to be able to train ourselves to take an extra beat so that we can be with someone who, unlike Narcissus, can be different than me. It doesn't have to threaten me. I don't have to correct them. I don't have to be right. They don't have to be right. I can just be with them curiously. That makes the world it makes our experience of the world a little friendlier moment by moment.
So how does that play into your definition of friendship and being a friend?
Huh. Well, I come from a background of making films, of being a filmmaker. And I realize from that context that every story, every story worth telling is always about connection. You could say that every story is a love story,
Yes.
whether it's whether it's a straight ahead romance, or whether it's about spirituality, or just human relationships, or a crime thing, or the most vile war, the toughest war movie.
Yeah.
At the root of it, people are looking to connect. We're looking to find some kind of meaning, to create some sort of bridge between us. That is always the root of it. It's the ground zero of everything. Underneath the most vile behavior is a desire to belong or to matter, to say I exist. And so in that way, I think of everything as a love story, and that I see a friend kind of like a beautiful lab. It's a place where we get to explore that. We get to rehearse the kind acts of honesty and care that are the basic building block of not only a relationship, a family, but of society. So it seems to me that it is a particularly precious kind of relationship, unlike a family relationship or the relationship one has with a spouse. Those are beautiful, but almost always they come with certain kinds of contracts. For the most part, some of them are clear, but for the most part, they're below the waterline. They're There's certain kind of obligations and indebtedness, and in a really pure friendship, that's a love that is freely given,
Mm,
that doesn't have indebtedness. It has a certain kind of obligation that I kind of see much like a garden. I
mm,
have a little garden outside, and if I don't tend to it, if I don't honor the obligation to tend to it, then it doesn't thrive. But it has, I don't have any indebtedness one way or the other. There's no contract of you owe me, you were, I gave you vegetables all summer long and now you owe me.
right.
That's not a part of it. And so friendships have the potential to be freely given, to be a place where we can expand our sense of self, where I don't have to agree with everything from a friend, and I can take the pause to see, well, what is it here that's rubbing me the wrong way,
Mm,
and can I slow it down, let down my guard a little bit, so that I increase my capacity to be with others.
mm,
It's a place that allows me to become more. And another way of saying it is, it's a place where I can slow it down and choose to be with another person and let them be different than me without them losing my love, or
mm.
without the threat of them losing my love.
Read that you wrote, friending is how we practice love in public. It's the soft skill that holds everything together. That's such a beautiful way to look at our connection with other people.
Mm,
That's great.
thank you.
So we are
I mean that. Go ahead.
well, no, I was going to say it's beautiful. Do you think everyone is capable of being a good friend?
No, I don't. I don't. We all sort of like to think of ourselves as being good friend material, but not everybody is friend material. And there is a kind of conventional wisdom that friending, like love, has to come naturally.
Mm,
And that if you have to work at it, it's somehow suspicious. And I think that that is nonsense, as much for friendship as it is for love. It takes a lot of work.
yeah.
This is not like breaking rock, but it takes a certain amount of responsibility. By that, a capacity to respond to another person, and to be willing to change our fixed ideas about the way things are. And that is not a simple thing to do. You have to be pretty sophisticated. It's a lot easier to be like Narcissus, to be in that little soap bubble. It's a lot easier to have relationships with people who are exactly the same as you are. It doesn't grow anybody very well, and it doesn't provide for a depth to the relationship.
Mm,
They tend to kind of get boring and to wane and to dissipate. So it's not a simple matter. It really requires a commitment. Just like back to my garden analogy, it's not a simple matter
right.
to take care of a garden. You have to show up for it. It requires consistency.
Yeah.
It requires commitment. And I like to think of it as it requires honoring. And
Mm,
I write in the book some of my thoughts about honoring. I see that, I think of honoring as the willingness to be changed by another person or thing. I honor you by my willingness to allow you to have impact on me.
mm. Wow.
So
Wow.
that's not a simple matter. I mean, you have to slow down. In order to allow somebody to have impact on you, you have to slow down enough to feel either appreciative
Yeah.
or to feel, why am I reacting? Why are my hackles up here? Why am I fragmenting? What is this? What is it that somebody has said to me that doesn't sit well, and why? And that doesn't mean that I have to go into agreement with the other. That's not necessarily honoring. It just means that I allow myself to be changed because I recognize there's something about my own worldview
Mm.
that is being challenged, and I don't have the experience or the practice of sitting with my own feelings, with my
Yeah.
own awkward feelings, without automatically either denying them or repressing them or lashing out. One of the things that is required for a friendship, I think, is that we learn how to provide safety for
Mm.
others, for ourselves. And if a friend doesn't feel safe with you,
Yeah.
then that's the whole ball
Wow.
game. And safety doesn't mean bubble wrap. It means you're not weaponizing their vulnerability. And for that, you have to learn how to recognize what's going on in you and to slow it all down so that you get to introduce choice. How am I going to respond to this? How am I going to react to this? Am I going to react to it being appreciative? Can a friend say something to me that's messy without me flinching or lashing out? And if not, it's a growth edge. So it's not something that just comes normally like flight to an eagle. It's a human capacity. Some people are better at being friends than others. Some people are better at being spouses than others.
Yeah.
Some people follow their whim and nobilize that, and some people learn when to follow their whim and when it's inappropriate, when it's going to lead me into a ditch. We grow. These are all qualities of growth.
Wow. And I read that you also wrote "Friendship begins where judgment ends." It's such a beautiful way to describe it. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the power of friendship. We'll be right back. So, Barnett, one of the things that you talk about in your book, How to Be a Friend in an Unfriendly World, speaking of being a friend, is sending a text to someone that says, thinking of you, no reply needed. And when I read that, I was so moved by that because all of us who have been on the receiving end of a text like that just know how good that feels. It kind of just feels like a hug. What is the power in that?
Well, I think that everybody has a fear that people will disappear.
Mm.
And again, like watering your garden, consistency in friending is more important than the intensity of it. And so to text a friend that you maybe have drifted from and to say, I'm thinking of you, and no reply, no obligation, nothing is necessary, it's just a generous and loving act. There are a few other things that are helpful like that. One of them is to reduce people's fear of shame or humiliation.
Mm.
Nothing shuts a person down faster than embarrassment, and we all know this. We've all experienced this, and so when somebody is vulnerable with us, it's helpful to really cherish the moment. And you know, you can try something like, well, when a friend is vulnerable or admits a mistake, you say, "Yeah, I've done that too." Or another one is, um, we recognize that everybody is carrying some kind of an invisible backpack, and whether it's their family or their culture or their fears or their hopes, we don't have to like what's in it, but we can decide to respect the weight. Another one is, if you're like me, I have a thing, and my wife is constantly reminding me, I just want you to listen. I didn't ask you to fix. I'm
Yeah.
not particularly men. We are not comfortable with our own feelings of being powerless, or we're not comfortable with somebody else that's close to us who is, unhappy or not feeling the way we want them, the way we wish we could control them to feel. And so we kind of preempt, we're so uncomfortable with their feelings, we preempt it, and we just try and fix, we just try and solve. But one of the solutions to that, and it's something that friends really appreciate from one another, is, before you jump in with advice, try asking, do you want me to listen or help? And put the brakes on this impulse to, oh no, I know exactly who the doctor is, or I know what you should do with this, or I know
Right.
what you should do
Right.
with that. You let people mostly want to empty their own reservoir of feelings. They're not asking to be fixed, they're asking to be
Heard.
heard.
Yeah.
And it provides pleasure for people to be heard. And that's another one, joy and pleasure. That joy is not fluff, it's fuel. And letting somebody be heard is medicine. So
Wow.
be the person who remembers to just give the greatest gift of all, which is your presence, without trying to change anyone.
I, that's such a that's beautiful. How is there a way for us to do a self check to see if we're being a good friend? How do we know if we're being a good friend?
Well, that I do something that I call the mirror test. You spend like 2 minutes on your keyboard or writing out, how do I treat myself when I mess up or I'm feeling awkward? And then I ask, would a friend survive that?
Mm,
And
wow.
usually they don't. So another one is, for a whole day, experiment. Assume that everybody that you're connecting with, everything your friend does, for instance, assume good intentions, even the annoying stuff, and see how that works.
Yeah. Um, Barnett, the book is How to Be a Friend in an Unfriendly World. I could talk to you, I could listen to you for hours. I'm jealous of the students that took your artistry and personal spirituality class at Columbia, because they are certainly retreated to some magnificent talks. We end every show here with three big little questions, and we do them rapid fire. Are you ready, sir?
Okay, I'm nervous
Okay.
now.
All right. The first one is, how do you get yourself out of a bad mood?
I walk.
Okay. Do you do that every day?
I walk. I live in a beautiful place. It's wild. There's not much activity around, and trees do it. Nature does it. I walk.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
I am a terrible, terrible singer, so I don't have one. Although I'm always humming.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
wake up, I'm humming, and it's usually Christmas carols, no matter what year.
well, that's all right. That's okay. How many counts? All right. Now I know that you don't live in New Jersey, but the last question we always ask is, what is one of your favorite places in New Jersey?
The shore.
Perfect answer. You could not, you have full agreement from here. Again, the book is How to Be a Friend in an Unfriendly World. Barnett, thank you. It was such an honor to have this conversation. Thank you so much. And it's meant everything to me. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And that will do it for today's Big Little Stories. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at Big Little Stories Show. I'm Ivy Sharmetz. Be a good friend. I'll see you next time.